How you guys doing? Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. This video is part 2 of a series that I recently started where I essentially tried to define some commonly used comic book terminology. When I recently returned to comic books, I was exposed to a lot of terms that people were throwing about in videos and blog posts on Instagram that I didn't quite fully appreciate. And now, a few months after my return, I've kind of gotten myself up to speed because I really jumped into it with both feet to really try to understand what these terms meant. So I've started this video series to help others out there that may be returning to comics or getting into comics for the first time. Just earlier today, I had a guy here at my house that purchased some books from me that was getting into comics. He had never really collected as a kid. And so he's like, I'm struggling with where to begin. And so I said, check it out. I've got this video series you might want to check out on YouTube. So I have a feeling that this video series is actually going to help some folks. And in fact, the response to the first video was relatively positive. People sent me messages on Instagram. They posted up on that first video kind of speaking about the fact that they hadn't really seen this done before, how they appreciated some of the definitions that I was offering, because there was, I think, some enlightenment that kind of came with some of those terms that I was sharing. So I've compiled another list of terms working with my buddy Matt, aka Thanatos, who was also my proofreader and fact checker. We've pulled together another list of 10 terms that we want to share with you tonight. If you haven't seen part 1, we encourage you to check it out. If you look in one of these corners, there is actually an eye in one of the corners. If you click that, I'm going to put a link to not only part 1 of this video, but Thanatos's channel, as well as some additional resources that I'm going to be talking about in the next part of the video. So look for that eye, and also look for some of these links in the text box below the video. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I encourage you to do so. If you are a subscriber, if you're leaving me comments, if you're leaving me likes and thanks, I absolutely appreciate it. So let's get to the terms. All right, so let's go ahead and begin looking at these terms. The first term is want list. As the term implies, this is essentially a list of books that a collector wants to acquire for his or her collection. Oftentimes, these want lists are developed for the full calendar year and serve as an outline or plan of action that can keep a collector focused. As you would imagine, there is an infinite number of books on the market that one could purchase for their collection. And so a want list is a great way to kind of keep your energies, your efforts, and your resources directed towards those books that you truly want to acquire. Personally, I have a want list for 2018 that's comprised of 8 books, and I've managed in the first few months of this year to acquire 5 of those books, and I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to collect the last 3 before the end of the year. The next term, grading. This is a process by which experts employed by a third-party organization will examine and evaluate a comic for the purpose of giving it a grade. Think of a grade as a quality score. The grading scale ranges from 0.5 or poor quality to a 10, which is considered gem mint. Books are evaluated to identify any defects such as color breaks, detached covers, missing pages, or restoration, for example. The fewer the defects found, the higher the grade of the comic. So here you can see 2 examples of 2 high-grade comics. The first is Spider-Man #1, which was published in 1990, and it has a grade of 9.8. The second, Eternals #1, which was published in 1976, and it has a grade of 9.4. Generally speaking, these 2 books have relatively few defects associated with them. Otherwise, they would have a much lower score than a 9.8 and a 9.4. The next term, CGC. CGC stands for Certified Guaranteed Company. CGC is basically a third-party grading company located in Sarasota, Florida. The company was founded in 2000 and describes itself as the first impartial third-party comic book grading service. And again, here on screen, you can see two examples of books that were graded by CGC. And I'll put up some other examples here so that you can see those. Here is New Mutants number 98 with a grade of 9.2. And here is Giant Size X-Men number 1 with a grade of 7.5. So again, here are just different books that were graded both by CGC. They were graded at different times, different years. So what you see is two different looks to the labels that were used. This is an old label and this is a newer label. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a few terms. So the next term that I want to speak to is CBCS. This is another third-party comic grading service that is located in St. Petersburg, Florida. CBCS stands for Comic Book Certification Service, and it was started by Steve Borak, who was the president and primary grader for CGC in previous years. It should be mentioned that CBCS was recently acquired by Beckett Media, a recognized leader in the collectibles industry. This acquisition by Beckett is the reason that CGC now touts its independent status. So here on screen, you can see Amazing Spider-Man number 121 with a grade of a 9.4. And as you probably have already noticed, these two holders, one from CBCS and one from CGC, look similar but different from one another. And again, we'll speak to that in a term or two. Okay. So the next term that I want to speak about is PGX. PGX, or Professional Comic Grading Experts, was established in 2002, and it's located in Eugene, Oregon. PGX proclaims that it continues to be the fastest and most affordable grading service in the industry. Unfortunately, I do not have a PGX book to show you, but I did do a printout, and it's going to be a little hard to see this, so I'll try to find a way to maybe put it on screen in the video itself. But I wanted you to at least be able to see the labels that are offered by PGX, and they have three different types of labels. They have a blue label, a gold label, and a green label. Now, as you can kind of just see here on screen, there are different color labels that all have different meanings to them. For the purpose of this video, we're not going to dig into those details. We may do that in a future video, or you can search on YouTube the differences between the labels, because there may be ample resources online already that can help define and explain the rationale behind those various labels. If you decide that you want to use PGX, I would encourage you to check out YouTuber We Love Comics. In each one of his videos, he speaks about a discount code where you can actually save some money, I think, on your first submission to PGX. So be sure to check out We Love Comics for that discount code. And what I'll also do is either in the eye in the corner or in the description to the video, I will try to put links to CGC, CBCS, and also PGX to make it a little bit easier for you to find those websites and those grading services. So the next term that I want to talk about is slab. A slab is a generic term used for the holder that is used by third-party companies to encapsulate comic books during the grading process. The slabs are made of sturdy plastic and various archival materials that are designed to preserve and protect comics. As you would imagine, there are differences between the materials used by the three grading services. So each type of slab has its pluses and minuses. Very easily and very quickly, I want to show, hopefully you'll be able to see it. This is an older slab. and an older CGC label. Here is a more up-to-date CGC label and holder. And if you turn these to the side, you may be able to see the differences in the thickness of the older holder and the slab being thicker versus the newer. So they've made improvements not just to the labels themselves and the quality of the plastic, but also to the thickness of the holders. This thinner slab is actually much more sturdy than this older one. Okay, and these CGC slabs are actually designed to fit together and to stay in place, whether you're standing them up or if you're laying them down. They will kind of fit into one another and hold a little securely. So we'll stack these up here so you guys can see those. So the next term that I want to talk about is press. Pressing is a process that can enhance the appearance of comics by correcting defects. Non-color breaking defects such as warping, ripples, spine rolls, and impact dents can be corrected during the pressing process. Color breaking defects like spine ticks, folds, and creases cannot be corrected entirely. If properly done, pressing can increase the appearance and thus the value of a comic. There were a lot of terms that I threw out in the definition for press that you may or may not be familiar with. If you're not familiar with them, I encourage you to go back and to check out the first part of this video series where I actually define many of those terms like ticks, color breaks, non-color breaking. All of those things are defined in part 1 of this video series. So the next term that I want to speak about is spine roll. Simply put, a spine roll is a defect that prevents a comic from laying perfectly flat on a level surface. This defect can be seen in modern comics, and it's oftentimes related to improper handling, like the cover being folded back or pressure being applied to the cover from books being stacked upon it. In older comics, this type of defect could be related to improper handling or the improper placement of staples during the production process. For example, in many cases, spine rolls can be corrected during the pressing process, which I just defined. So I want to show you an example of a spine roll using a modern book. And you can actually see it there on screen. You can see that there is a little bit of a curve right here where my thumb is placed. And if you try to hold this book flat, you can see that this side kind of curves up, right? It almost forms like a J, if you will. If you hold the book flat, you can see that that side kind of curves up. So this is an example of a spine roll from someone taking the cover of this book and folding it back, or again, comic books being stacked on top of it, and the weight of those books over time will put pressure here and make this outer edge kind of curve up. So the next term is dreck. This term has German and Yiddish origins that essentially means trash. Within the context of comic books, the term refers to books that are basically worthless. So, for example, these two books that you see here that have been encapsulated in slabs, New Mutants number 98 and Eternals, to a lesser extent, these two books are worth something. This book is certainly a key. This one is gaining in popularity with the possibility of an Eternals movie being produced. It's starting to kind of gain in some popularity. But contrast this book here to this book, Bloodshot and Hard Corpse number 14. Now, if this is your favorite book, I apologize. If this book is actually worth something, I apologize. I don't know much about this title, but for the purpose of this illustration, I wanted to kind of contrast what might be considered dreck versus what is considered a key and a valuable comic book. So the last term that I want to speak about is GPA. GPA is an online subscription service that aggregates CGC graded comic books and their sales on a daily basis. This service provides collectors with detailed sales information, trends analysis, and graphs that enable subscribers to stay abreast of the market in real time. An alternative to GPA is Go Collect, which describes itself as a stock ticker for comic books. Go Collect is a subscription service like GPA. However, it tracks sales of both CGC and CBCS books. So GPA, I actually don't have a subscription to either one of these services. But I did print off, and again, I'll try to put this on screen because I know it's going to be impossible for you to see. But some of the features of GPA are that it has sales data for the last 17 years. On the site, you can actually look at average price. You can look at trends and movements from year to year. You have volume charts so that you can see how many books have actually been sold at a given price. And the list goes on in terms of the features that are offered. This particular service costs $9.92 per month if you do it for the year at roughly $119. Otherwise, it's $10.95 on a per month basis. I'm less familiar with Go Collect, so I actually don't have pricing information for that. But what I will do is put links to both of these sites in this video to make it a little bit easier for you to find those websites should you choose to look into them. So over this course of this video, we've attempted to look at roughly 10 terms: GPA, dreck, spine roll, press, slab, PGX, CBCS, CGC, grading, and want list. If you found this video helpful, I encourage you to leave a comment below. If you still have some terms that you want to explore, I would encourage you to take a look at part 1 of the video series that I've created, because it has 8 additional terms that you may also find helpful. If there was anything that was slightly incorrect in this video and you're more of an expert than I encourage you to put those comments and those corrections into the comment field so that others can kind of learn from this. Again, I'm doing this as a way to kind of contribute to the community. I'm certainly no expert in these terms, and there are many of you out there that are much more knowledgeable than I. So again, if I've gotten anything wrong, I encourage you to add to the knowledge base and help steer people in the right way. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do so, because I try to create content like this that either entertains you or adds a little bit of value. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Have a great one.